It's March 13th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with potential mass resignations by medical professors. Medical school professors at 19 universities nationwide are now threatening to resign en masse over the medical school expansion. 3 incumbent and former officials of the Korean Medical Association went through 14 hours of police questioning over their suspected role in instigating the mass walkout. U.S. inflation rose yet again in February, keeping the Federal Reserve on course to wait at least until the summer before lowering interest rates. The S&P 500 closed at another new all-time high, downplaying the hotter-than-expected CPI figures on Tuesday. First aid ship to Gaza has set sail from Cyprus with nearly 200 tons of aid consisting of flour, rice, and protein for Palestinians in desperate need. With no functioning port in Gaza, a jetty has been built to receive the aid. Medical school professors will now decide by Friday whether they will also collectively resign, meaning the Emergency Response Committee of Professors will spend the next few days seeing whether other medical professors are seeking to take such collective action. Our Choi Soo-hyung has the latest.
The massive walkout by junior doctors could soon spread to a collective resignation of medical professors nationwide. An emergency response committee of professors from 19 medical schools across the country decided in a late-night online meeting on Tuesday to determine whether to submit collective resignation letters by Friday. Those schools include the so-called Big Five hospitals in Seoul, such as Seoul National University, Yonsei University, and Catholic University. In the statement released after the meeting, the professors said they would protect the trainee doctors from legal actions by the government. Also, they will stop the government's plan to expand the medical school quota. Meanwhile, Kim Tae-gu, the chairman of the Emergency Response Committee of the Korean Medical Association, underwent intense police interrogation at the Seoul Metropolitan Police Station for over 14 hours from Tuesday afternoon. Kim is among the 5 individuals that the Health Ministry on February 27th accused of obstructing junior doctors' training through incitement of their mass walkout. After interrogation, he said the government's strong stance is regrettable and the walkout of trainee doctors is entirely voluntary. The current situation, sparked by the government's plan to increase medical school enrollment by 2,000 places, has been ongoing for 4 weeks. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the government has unveiled a new plan to increase financial support for smaller specialized hospitals. That is to address the issue of patients flocking to major hospitals. Our Shin Yeon has the details.
The government's plan is to change the current medical insurance system based on hospital size. During a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo announced the measures to increase financial support for smaller specialty hospitals. Currently, hospitals in South Korea are categorized into primary small clinics, secondary specialty hospitals, and tertiary comprehensive hospitals. Han stated that the government will calculate insurance fees paid based on the medical capabilities of each hospital, not based on their size, to normalize the current healthcare system, which relies heavily on junior doctors. He said the current system gives the largest 5 hospitals in Seoul more support regardless of their actual medical performance or achievements.
Some small, specialized hospitals currently treat patients with severe problems at the same level as tertiary comprehensive hospitals. The government aims to reduce excessive dependence on junior doctors and is moving forward to establish an effective medical system.
Moreover, the Ministry of Health and Welfare will strengthen its assessments in hiring medical personnel for new medical institutions, doubling the number of specialists compared to trainee doctors.
The inconvenience in the medical field due to the departure of trainee doctors reflects a distorted reality that overly relies on them. In top-tier hospitals, the proportion of trainee doctors is about 40% and is abnormal when compared to countries such as the United States and Japan, where it's around 10%.
The ministry will also support national university hospitals and regional training hospitals in hiring more specialists to reduce the workload of trainee doctors, allowing them to focus on their training. It added that for specialists, long-term contracts will be promoted over the current customary practice of one-year short-term contracts to stabilize their employment environment. The government will hold a meeting on reforming the healthcare system, including discussions on increasing insurance fee payments and expanding the employment of specialists. 신예은, Arirang News.
Starting today, military and public doctors are now replacing absent doctors at hospitals. Making matters worse, medical school professors are threatening to take collective action as well. For more, we're joined by Professor Howard Lee. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Dami.
Thanks for joining us. Nearly 12,000, that's over 90% of trainee doctors, they have left their places of work. The question is, are hospitals really looking empty?
Well, I would say it doesn't look empty because the basic functionality of the hospital has been maintained. But I should say it does look really less crowded because the number of patients that we are seeing at the hospital has been decreased by almost 50 to 60%, depending on which hospital you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So hospitals are still up and running, but just not as crowded as before. Now, like I said, military and public doctors have now been dispatched to private hospitals to fill the gap left by those absent doctors. I mean, it's starting today, but how are the scenes looking at the moment?
Well, I haven't seen any public health or military doctor deployed to our hospital. Mm-hmm. It's understandable because less than 10 doctors are deployed to each hospital. So it's really hard to see them working. And many of them are actually untrained or training in different disciplines. So I don't think they would make any dent in general. There are doctors coming from outside. Mm-hmm. So they don't really understand how to use electronic medical records at a specific hospital. And then, work in the hospital is something that we have to collaborate with each other. For those doctors coming outside, they don't have any network in people, in everything. So it's really hard to see for them to work efficiently, as efficiently as they could. So it's not working, I should say.
Right, definitely. It's going to take some time for them to get adjusted and, look around the hospitals. But dispatching those military and public doctors could also mean a gap in medical services in non-capital areas because they are being dispatched to those big hospitals here in Seoul and the surrounding regions. I hear some hospitals are also closing down some of their wards.
Yes, absolutely. Wasn't it because of the lack of medical services in the countryside that the government started this sort of kind of a very confusing sort of drive at first? So to me, it's preposterous because sending doctors serving countryside people, toward the countryside, and then the government started sending them to hospitals mostly located in a big city. So that doesn't make any sense to me. And I heard a news article yesterday. Patients served by those public health doctors in the countryside of the nation, they are not able to see their doctors anymore. When it comes to closing the hospital wards, yes, it works. And at my hospital, I think, if I'm not seriously mistaken, 30 to 40% of the hospital wards have been put together simply because we don't have as many doctors as we used to have.
Right, and some of the doctors who have looked after their parents during this entire time are really being pressured, I heard, from their colleagues to leave their jobs. Is that what's happening?
I would not agree with that. To me, it's primarily based on the political propaganda set by the government. I mean, young doctors are a different generation of doctors. They don't do as they were, ordered or asked to do something. They are very individual. So, and also they respect no matter what decisions other doctors are making. So I can't agree with this type of kind of fake political propaganda set by the government. That's absolutely not true.
Professor
Not true.
Lee, I mentioned earlier how medical school professors nationwide are also looking to resign collectively. Now, if that does happen, I mean, what kind of aftermath can we expect?
Wow, two things. Number one, I want to make a little correction to what you have said. It's not a collective action, although it looks like that way. It's absolutely individual decision by each professor. Okay, two things we have to worry about. Number one, they don't see patients anymore, meaning that the hospital will maintain just minimum bare function of the hospital. So that really means a lot to many patients out there. That's a sad story. Second thing, they also involved in teaching, educating medical students, not only medical students, but young trainee doctors. But many students went out of the school, and also many trainee doctors work out of the hospital. So there's not much that we can do. But professors will stop teaching, educating those medical students and young doctors, no matter how we have at this point.
Right, it's the patients and the students that will be left behind. All right, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The prospect of a U.S. Fed rate cut may be pushed a little further, as latest data showed a rise in the U.S. consumer prices. However, the latest CPI figures still led to a rally on Wall Street, with the S&P 500 reaching a new all-time high. Our Lee Seung-jae has the figures.
According to the U.S. Commerce Department's Bureau of Labor Statistics on Tuesday, the U.S. Consumer Price Index rebounded slightly in February and remained stagnant in the low 3% range. The latest data showed that U.S. CPI rose 3.2% compared to the same month a year ago and was up 0.4% from the previous month. U.S. inflation peaked at 9.1% in June 2022 and has since slowed down, fluctuating in the low to mid 3% range since June 2023. Meanwhile, excluding volatile food and energy prices, core CPI rose 0.4% in February, up 3.8% on year. Both were slightly higher than market expectations. The increase in energy and shelter prices accounted for more than 60% of the total gain. However, despite the slight rise in the U.S. consumer prices and the prospect of the U.S. Fed freezing its key rates further, Wall Street reacted positively to the latest CPI data, with the S&P 500 climbing to a new all-time high during Tuesday's trading session. The S&P 500 rose more than 1% on the day to close at 5,175.27, breaking the previous high set just 3 sessions ago. The Dow Jones ended trading up 0.61%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq rose over 1.5%. According to a senior investment strategist at U.S. Bank Wealth Management, rising inflation is an indication that consumers are doing well and that the slight rise in the CPI isn't affecting investor sentiment. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Seoul's Trade Minister Chung In-kyo said Tuesday that South Korean companies are expected to receive subsidies under the U.S. CHIPS Act. Speaking to reporters upon arrival at Dulles Airport in Washington, Chung said it's certain that the country will receive the subsidies from the Semiconductor Act, but the scale is uncertain. When asked when the U.S. is expected to make a related announcement, South Korea's trade chief said at the end of March. He added that while it's difficult to predict whether South South Korean companies will face any disadvantages. As the scale of subsidies is based on the guidelines set by the U.S., he does not believe that will be the case. Washington provides semiconductor production and R&D subsidies to encourage semiconductor companies to invest in facilities in the U.S. Election campaigning kicks into high gear in Korea ahead of April. Both ruling and main opposition parties launched their own campaign committees for this high-stakes election. Our National Assembly correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
With just a month left until the general election, both the ruling and opposition parties have formed their election campaign committees. The ruling People Power Party's interim leader Han Dong-un will serve as its committee's chief chairman. According to a party announcement on Tuesday, the co-chairpersons of the committee are the PPP's floor leader Yoon Jae-ok, former lawmaker Na Kyung-won, former land minister Won Hee-ryong, and current lawmaker An Chol-soo. The PPP emphasized the importance of winning in metropolitan areas including Seoul, Gyeonggi-do Province, and Incheon, stating that the co-chairpersons are expected to lead these areas to victory. A control room to respond to election-related situations will commence operations on Wednesday. In the meantime, the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea on the same day also launched its campaign committee to oversee its election strategy and campaign. Operating under a so-called top three system, the committee is led by the DP leader Lee Jae-myung alongside former party leader Lee Hae-chan and former Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyung. The four key themes are defined as innovation, integration, public participation, and judgment of the Yoon administration. After opening a ceremony on Tuesday, the committee held its first meeting. While emphasizing the importance of integration to overcome turbulence within the party regarding candidate selection, the committee appealed to voters for support in the upcoming general election. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Cultural exchanges can be often a good way to build friendships between people from different countries. It's in line with this that a group of Harvard students have come to South Korea to experience a unique culture while sharing their passion for music with Koreans. Our Lee has the story.
100 Harvard students have come to South Korea. During their 10-day trip, the students stopped off at Jinkwansa Temple, a Buddhist temple located in Seoul. Monks describe Jinkwansa Temple as a place where prayer and practice cultivate happiness and wisdom, a true sanctuary for the mind. Jinkwansa is over 1,000 years old and is located to the west of Bukhansan Mountain. Students got to learn about the temple's history and watch an annual ritual which is also a designated national cultural heritage called the Suryukje, a ceremony for water and land. While learning about Korean temple cultural practices such as tea drinking, the students took a brief pause to meditate.
I'm so happy to be here at the temple. It was very relaxing in the morning. We have a very busy schedule, so it's so nice to even get to meditate for a few minutes. I'm really happy to be around nature as well. We've been in Seoul for a few days. It's very concrete pavement, and I love being around the trees and the grass now.
One of the highlights of a temple stay is the opportunity to sample temple food, which is known as being healthy and vegetarian, as well as environmentally friendly and sustainable. From preparation to consumption, every step in the temple is a daily practice.
I think the experience was so intimate. Last time I came, I went to the markets and the street life, and it was really overwhelming, but this is overwhelming in a really different way.
The students, who are also members of the Harvard Radcliffe Orchestra, will be performing concerts across the country during their stay.
When the mind is harmonious and at peace, music resonates even more beautifully. That's why it's important for musicians to find ways to cleanse and regulate their inner selves.
With their minds and bodies revitalized, up next for the Harvard Radcliffe Orchestra is their first concert at Lotte Concert Hall in Seoul on Wednesday evening. Lee, Arirang News.
Good morning. I'm Kim Ji-young, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. We start off with the first shipment of aid bound for Gaza by sea since the outbreak of war following attacks from Hamas on Israel on October 7th. The Open Arms, an aid ship carrying 200 tons of relief supplies for Palestinians in Gaza, set sail from Cyprus on Tuesday. As Gaza has no functioning port, the international charity behind the mission, World Central Kitchen, is building a jetty to receive the aid. The Spanish NGO ship left the port city of Larnaca, towing a barge containing around 200 tons of flour, rice, canned vegetables and protein. It will take up to 2 days to arrive in Gaza. WCK said that a further 500 tons of aid in Cyprus is ready for dispatch, saying that the second vessel would depart within the next few days. The United Nations welcomed the opening of the maritime corridor for the delivery of urgent humanitarian aid, however emphasized the importance of land routes as the scale of aid delivery by land is incomparable. The United States announced that it will send a new military aid package worth $300 million to Ukraine on Tuesday. This is the first release of funds for Kyiv from the US in months, with additional aid still blocked by Republicans in Congress. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that the funds will be used for artillery rounds and munitions for high-mobility artillery rocket systems. On the same day, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that a Russian missile hit 2 apartment buildings in the central Ukrainian city of Kryvyi Rih, killing at least 3 and injuring 38. Earlier on Tuesday, the Russian Defense Ministry said Ukraine-based armed groups, backed by tanks and armored combat vehicles, tried to invade Russia's Belgorod region, but Russian forces had repelled the attacks. China on Tuesday claimed indisputable sovereignty over islands in the South China Sea after the Philippines questioned a proposal from Beijing regarding the handling of disputes in the region. Earlier the same day, the Philippines Foreign Ministry said China's proposals undermined international law and were against national interests. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin argued that China's plans were submitted with sincerity and goodwill, saying the Philippines' regrettable response spoiled the atmosphere of communication and cooperation between the two sides. Tensions between China and the Philippines have been escalating, with frequent clashes between coast guards and civilian ships from both countries in the contested, resource-rich South China Sea. In South Africa, a conservation NGO on Tuesday announced that they had begun preparation for the rewilding of 2,000 captive-bred white rhinos at an undisclosed location. The NGO African Parks purchased the rhinos from a private breeder and aims to rewild around 200 rhinos per year over the next 10 years. This could boost the world's white rhino population by up to 15%. Animal poaching remains a severe issue in South Africa, and according to government data, 499 rhinos were poached last year. The previous owner of the rhinos waiting to be rewilded, John Hume, said that he sold the animals as the cost of protecting the rhinos from poachers was too high.
Good morning. Today looks to be more calm and comfortable under brighter skies nationwide. But we are starting out the day on a chillier note, while highs will go up to slightly higher than Tuesday afternoon. In fact, most parts of the country will notice big temperature swings of 10 to 15 degrees Celsius today. Despite warmer afternoon temperatures, strong winds will make it feel colder than these actual readings. Morning temperatures in most regions are 2 to 5 degrees lower than Tuesday. Highs in Seoul should get up to 12 degrees, Daegu topping out at 15 degrees Celsius. Decent air quality is expected during the day before dusty air blows in from overseas tonight. And it looks like dusty air stays along with the warming trend. Highs in Seoul will soar to the mid-teens starting tomorrow, getting close to the 20s in certain parts of the country, with rain in the forecast across the southern regions this weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Thursday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.